Hi, it's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop again. We only had one video last week because I had some students here. So we're back on this fender, and this was the panel we did first. I did this entirely with the YouTube English wheel. And then we cut it in half. Fit beautiful. And we found out how much that we lost in thickness by stretch forming the whole piece, and it was, I believe, 7/1000ths of an inch that we lost. So this panel, we've used the gathering tool that I've created and the shrinking facilitators, and we shrunk this edge. We got that nice curve, and it still needs a little, and probably it could be another 15 or 20 minutes or maybe 40 minutes, I don't know, to get it really dialed in. And then the surface quality has to be picked up. It's pretty nice. But I thought it's really not going to make that much of a change. I figured why beat a dead horse. So what I'm going to do on this is just cut this in half now, because it's not going to stretch too much more. It's not going to shrink anymore. But just for comparison, because this was both shrunk on the edge and stretched in here, we'll be able to compare the results with that fender, the previous one. So that's what we're going to do next, is just cut this in half and then measure it up. Okay, so we're going to cut it in half approximately about where we cut the other one. Alrighty. Now we'll sand this edge a little bit to get the saw burr off, and then we'll get a micrometer and measure it up. Alright, so here's a side-by-side comparison. This is the one we shrunk, this is the one we stretched, and we welded this piece on. That much was welded on. So let's go over here, right on this edge here. This should be about the original thickness. That's 35/1000ths. Over here, this should be the same because that wasn't even worked at all. So 35/1000ths. Now we'll come in about 2 inches in from where that weld was, and we got 30/1000ths there. And then this one was stretched too, remember, but it was shrunk on the edge. Same spot. We got 31/1000ths there. Now we'll come 2 inches over. We have 30/1000ths there, and that was about right here. Here we have 28.5. Then come over here, and we have 28. Same spot on this one is right here, and my micrometer just fell apart. That's 30. Over here, we have 28. Here we have 32. Here we have 30. And here we have 34. Right on the edge, and that had to be smoothed out a little bit, might be a little less. That's 33. Right here was 32. So, subtle little difference there. This one's a little bit better than this one. Not bad though. And you saw the result there. Both of them acceptable. What's important is you take your, oh, my knuckles got cracks in it, maybe this knuckle. You take your knuckle like that, and you don't have a dent. It has to have enough dent resistance that you can't dent it easily with your knuckles. So these are both usable panels, but these are 20 gauge panels. Now typically I would make this out of 19 gauge, but as I mentioned, I think in an earlier video, 19 gauge is getting very difficult to get. Although I just found a supplier and I've got a lot of 19 gauge now. So what I was thinking of doing was showing another method, the method I used to make all my Jaguar pots with. And a lot of people say, well, you know, that's really slow doing it the way when you English wheeling it that slow. And when I did the shrinking by hand, oh, that's slow. Well, I'll use my what's called a Helve hammer or a Maglio. It's basically a powered hammer with a motivated arm. I made it in 1993. And we're going to cut a blank of metal. We'll use 20 gauge too, so we'll have an accurate comparison. And I'll show you how fast I can do it on that powered hammer. It's not a Yoder style hammer. I call it an Italian style hammer. I believe the Italians came up with the design back probably in the early teens or so of last century. And it's called a Maglio, which means mallet, I believe, in Italian. So we'll make that blank, but I also wanted to show you, I've had 2 students here that did the 130 hours. They're still here, and they cooperated. One, Travis did most of the work. He welded the pieces up and stuff, but he was able to make the fender. He's just about done with it. This is the fender here, and we did this out of 060 aluminum, and he did a really nice job. And Travis's experience level was 0. So he came to the class with 0 experience. And now I have a new fender. So he's been dressing up this edge here. He tipped a 3/4 flange on this edge. And this is going to have a wired edge in it. Right now it's only at 90 degrees. And he has this seam has got to be cleaned up a little bit. He's been cleaning that up. And after he gets all done, we're going to dress it a little more and then probably buff the whole thing all out. This is from this 37 Studebaker pickup truck project that we have down on the drawing board. Peter Lamberti, one of my students, we did a video with him I think last June or so. He made the wire form, and now from the wire form from one student to 2 students, Larry and Travis, they have made this nice aluminum fender. It needs a little tweaking here and there, but it's a pretty nice job overall. So this was made by 060, and it was all shrunken using the shrinking facilitator and the gathering tool and stretching it out on the beater bag and also in the shrinking facilitator, and then wheeled. So just a little bit more detail work, and I'll have a really nice usable fender. Now, because this is aluminum, what we'll do is on this flange, which gives that strength to the curve, we'll put a 1/8 thick, or actually probably 3/16 thick piece of aluminum. We'll glue it and rivet it onto here, and that will strengthen greatly that edge. This will have a steel wired edge on it. We'll put a 1/8 inch wire in there. We'll paint the wire before we put it in. And then here we'll also put a 3/16 piece of strip of aluminum by 3/4 width, and that'll get glued and riveted. And then the fender attaches to the body, the back truck bed, by oval holes that will be punched in here, and that gives it a little forward and backwards adjustment potential. And we'll put a strip of probably 1/8 inch or maybe even 3/16 by about 1.5 inches wide strip right here, and that'll be all riveted and bonded on there, and that'll strengthen that. Now then what we do is the wheel will be in here. We'll make an inner fender splash pan right in here, which will have some beads in it and flanged edges, and that will take the brunt of any throw up that the wheel will throw up dirt or rocks or whatever, so it doesn't bang your panel up. But these are super strong, being 060. So that'll be a very nice fender. And Larry started making the other side using the flexible shape pattern off of this right here. Larry made the flexible shape pattern and started making the front section the opposite side. So that would be like this. And all that has to be done now is set that with the gauges, and then the next piece gets welded to it. And you can see he did a really nice job. Here's the panel, here's the flexible shape pattern he made, which is now inside out. And that's all you do is turn them inside out. Maybe it needs a little more right in here. Maybe a little more wheel, and it's a little loose right there. But this is a nice thing about these flexible shape patterns is you can turn them inside out and you make a perfectly symmetrical left or right. And if you have somebody in England or something that has a rare English car and he takes a flexible shape pattern off and folds it up and puts it in the mail with some paper gauges, he can send it to you in California and you can make the part super accurate. So there's no better system than this. This works really, really good. So what we're going to do is use Larry's flexible shape pattern that he made, and we're going to make this piece out of 20 gauge using my Maglio, and that'll be up next. Alright, so now what we'll do is we'll use the flexible shape pattern that Larry made off of that piece of that front fender instead of using the English wheel, which we'll use later, but we'll power this out with the Italian style hammer, which is called a Maglio. They're also referred to as a Helve hammer, and I made this back in like 1993. I could have done a better job if I knew what I know now, so I'm planning to make an updated version of this, probably with a shorter arm, and it would be something that just about anybody can build. It won't be that complicated. And to the people that don't want to swing the hammer all the time to do the shrinks, this is an ideal tool. It'll shrink and stretch. And I just made this the other day. This is a little bowl shape here, which will shrink like crazy. And instead, I did get a big load of 19 gauge steel in. So instead of using 20 gauge, which I really prefer to use 19 gauge, I think 19 gauge, I call that the Goldilocks. The 20 gauge is a little less dent resistance. The 18 gauge has more dent resistance than you need and it's harder to work. The 19 gauge is just perfect. So what we're going to do is we'll fire this up and I'll show you how I can shrink. This is the top part of the panel. I'll shrink the inside of this panel using this little bowl shape, and we'll probably also go over to my gathering tool, put some gathers in, and then knock them down with that rather than having to use the mallet by hand. So we'll fire this up. The clutch is not a really good clutch in this. It's run with an air actuator, and it's not as sensitive or stop as fast as I'd like. This needs a VH, a variable frequency drive, just like I have on my regular power hammer that we built. So here we go. Hit start, and you watch the action here. It's got an over center action. You can see that hits pretty hard, so you can light tap it a couple times. So we're going to be working on the inside of the panel, and we have to create this much volume in the panel. We're going to do that by shrinking this edge here, and I'll show how the edges are done just with that bowl shape, but then I'll go over to the shrinking gathering tool. So you can see how it threw up the spontaneous gathers here. Now to knock those down. Now I'll stretch this middle out a little bit. That one is getting pretty steep and I don't want it to go over, so I got to be careful with that. Let's see if I can knock now. I'm probably going to knock that down manually. Let me knock that down manually. We'll put a beater bag on here and then stretch a little bit with the beater bag. Put a plastic on here and see if we can smooth it out now. Alright, now we see what we have. Take the flexible shape pad and we're down to about about an inch or so. So let's try putting some gathers in here. We'll see if we can shrink them down. We'll try shrinking it right on here. at about 3/4 of an inch now. So give it a blast on the beater bag once again. Yeah, just a little bit. That's with shooting distance with the English wheel now. To planish that all out and get it all shiny. So that just shows the power of the Maglio method. It's one of the ways you can use a Maglio. You get shrinking, as you see. I did the shrinking tool here. We knocked them down just like we had done them manually. And this just needs to be smoothed out now. We can put that in the wheel and smooth it all out. To smooth it out real fast, I can put it in the power hammer and we can smooth it all out real quick. And you'll see what it looks like. All right, I'm going to smooth this out with the power hammer. But we might make one more panel like this out of the 19 gauge. We'll shrink it on the power hammer and also on the 2-inch thumbnail dies in my Trump machine. So let's just smooth this out quickly. I much prefer the English wheel for the quality of finish over the power hammer, but the power hammer knocks this stuff down really nicely. Yeah, this smoothed out pretty good. Now a little bit in the English wheel and that'll be like chrome plate in about 10 minutes. Let me set the arrangement. There you have it. And we're probably a little deficient still here in the middle. Yeah, we still need a little bit more. That'll come up in the English wheel in about 10-15 minutes. That'll come right up. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that. That's just another way of doing it. It's much faster, as you can see. This thing is a little bit dangerous. It doesn't take up much room. This can be a little bit dangerous too. English wheel can be dangerous. You have to be careful. You have to respect the machinery. And we'll do the same panel. Remember, this is 19 gauge too, which is This was 40 thousandths we're starting with. The other stuff was 5 thousandths thinner. And we'll do one more of these steel panels, and we'll do the shrinking on the other end over there with the thumbnail die. It's got a 4-inch thumbnail die. And eventually we'll finish them all with the English wheel, because that gives that nice chrome plate finish. But I think that's it for today. Thanks for the support you've been giving to my channel. Keep telling everybody about it. Please subscribe. Give us the comments. It's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts. Thank you.